Young and the Restless spoilers recap Thursdays, the 12th of March, 2026. The air in the Newman Enterprises press briefing room was thick, suffocatingly dense, with the electric hum of anticipation. Dozens of journalists, armed with recorders, flashing cameras, and an insatiable hunger for a scandal, shifted restlessly in their seats. Beyond the heavy velvet curtains, Victoria Newman stood in the shadows, closing her eyes for a fleeting second. She inhaled the cool, conditioned air, letting it fill her lungs, fortifying herself for the trial by fire that awaited her. She smoothed the lapels of her impeccably tailored crimson blazer, her armor for the afternoon. Today, she was not just a businesswoman, she was the shield maiden of the Newman legacy. The whispers surrounding her father, Victor Newman, had reached a fever pitch over the last few weeks. The media was practically frothing at the mouth, eager to crucify the great patriarch for his latest maneuvers. They called him ruthless. They called him a criminal. They said his empire was finally crumbling. Victoria's jaw tightened. Her face settled into a mask of absolute unyielding resolve. She would not let them tear her father down. She stepped out from behind the curtain, and the room instantly erupted. The staccato burst of camera shutters sounded like a firing squad. Blinding white flashes illuminated her sharp, aristocratic features as she strode purposefully toward the podium. A cacophony of voices battered against her. Victoria, is it true Victor is facing criminal charges? Miss Newman, what is the current status of the board? Victoria, where is your father hiding? She did not flinch. She did not rush. She reached the wooden podium adorned with the iconic N of Newman Enterprises and gripped its edges with steady hands. She leaned toward the microphone, her icy, commanding glare sweeping across the room. The sheer force of her presence, so eerily reminiscent of her father's, forced the chaotic room into a sudden, tense silence. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria began, her voice resonant, perfectly modulated and echoing through the hushed room. I have called this emergency press conference today to address the rampant speculation, the reckless rumors, and the sheer hysteria that has been circulating regarding my father, Victor Newman, and the operational integrity of Newman Enterprises. She paused, letting her eyes lock with a particularly aggressive reporter in the front row. Let me be entirely clear. The recent actions taken by my father have been described by some in the press as unconventional. I will not shy away from that word. Yes, they were unconventional. But in the landscape of global business, when faced with unprecedented threats, convention is often the first casualty of survival. A murmur rippled through the press corps, but Victoria raised a hand, silencing them instantly. These unconventional actions were not born out of malice or erratic behavior, as some of your publications have so irresponsibly suggested. She continued, her tone sharpening into a blade. They were calculated, necessary measures. Over the past month, Newman Enterprises has been subjected to a sophisticated, highly coordinated attack. We were facing the systematic liquidation of our assets, a digital siege designed to dismantle everything this family has built over decades. In the face of such a catastrophic threat, my father did what he has always done. He stepped into the breach. He took the necessary steps to protect this company, to protect our shareholders, and above all, to ensure the stability of our family. She leaned in closer to the microphone, her voice dropping to a fierce, compelling register. When the foundation of your house is under attack, you do not politely ask the arsonists to lay down their matches. You put out the fire, you secure the perimeter, and you do it by any means necessary. That is what Victor Newman did. He acted as the ultimate protector of this enterprise. A reporter from the Genoa City Chronicle jumped to his feet, ignoring protocol, but Miss Newman, protecting the company is one thing. The allegations suggest your father engaged in extortion, that he held people against their will to leverage his corporate standing. How do you justify that as protecting the family? Victoria's expression remained entirely impassive, though a familiar Newman fire ignited in her dark eyes. She had anticipated this exact line of questioning. I will not dignify baseless, sensationalized allegations with a line-by-line rebuttal. Victoria fired back smoothly, her voice slicing through the tension. What I will tell you is that my father acted solely to ensure the future of this company. You speak of leverage, I speak of defense. For weeks, hostile forces have been circling Newman Enterprises like vultures. Opportunists, corporate saboteurs, and greedy individuals who believed they could use a moment of vulnerability to carve up our assets and claim our legacy for themselves. She thought of the AI program, the manipulation, the sheer audacity of those who thought they could outsmart Victor Newman. She channeled that disgust into her speech. These hostile entities did not care about the thousands of employees who rely on Newman Enterprises for their livelihoods. They did not care about the global markets that depend on our stability. They only cared about their own bottom line, their own petty vendettas. My father saw the wolves at the door. He recognized the magnitude of the threat, and he met it with the exact level of force required to neutralize it. He was not playing a game. He was securing our future. Every decision he made, every maneuver he executed was done to ensure that Newman Enterprises remains intact, solvent, and dominant. Another journalist, a seasoned anchor from a national financial network, stood up. Victoria, even if we accept that the company was under attack, the sheer ruthlessness of Victor's counteroffensive has terrified the board. People are saying he has lost his moral compass. How do you respond to the accusations that Victor acted out of pure malicious intent, out of a desire to destroy his enemies rather than just save his company? Victoria's grip on the podium tightened until her knuckles turned white, but her face remained a portrait of aristocratic composure. This was the crux of the issue. The world always wanted to paint Victor as the villain, the dark shadow looming over Genoa City. But Victoria did not linger. She did not offer a single glance backward. She turned on her heel, her crimson blazer catching the flashing lights one last time, and strode confidently back through the heavy velvet curtains, leaving the chaotic roar of the press room behind her. She had delivered her message. She had defended her father's throne. And no matter the cost to her own soul or the fracturing of her family behind closed doors, she would stand the watch. She was a Newman, and Newmans never surrendered. The ambient light in Sharon's cottage was usually a source of immense comfort, a warm golden hue that smelled faintly of vanilla, and the proprietary coffee blends she brought home from Crimson Lights. Tonight, however, the shadows stretching across the floral upholstery felt jagged, menacing. At the center of the coffee table sat a sleek silver laptop, its screen casting a harsh, sterile blue glow over Nick Newman's hardened features. Nick leaned forward, his broad shoulders tense beneath his dark Henley, his eyes locked onto the scrolling text. Beside him, Sharon sat with her legs tucked under her, a mug of untouched tea growing cold in her hands. I still can't believe Adam actually came through with this. Nick murmured his voice, a low, gravelly rumble that betrayed the exhaustion settling deep in his bones. He hit the space bar, pausing the decryption program Adam had provided. Adam has his own twisted code. Nick Sharon replied softly, her gaze shifting from the screen to the tense line of Nick's jaw. When it comes to the safety of the family, especially when the threat is someone like Matt Clark, even Adam knows where to draw the line. Nick scoffed a bitter sound that lacked any real humor. Adam and Riza Thompson. I should have known his days as Spider in Vegas would come back to haunt us, or in this case, miraculously save us. Look at this, Sharon. Riza kept meticulous records, offshore accounts, safe house deeds, burner phone registries, and right there, buried in the ledger, he pointed a calloused finger at the screen. Matt Clark. Sharon shuddered at the name. The mere syllables were a curse word in Genoa City, a phantom from their past that carried the weight of unspeakable trauma, manipulation, and terror. Matt had targeted her, hurt her, and tried to destroy Nick. The revelation that he was not only active but plotting against them from the neon-soaked shadows of Las Vegas was a nightmare made manifest. Riza must have been supplying him with the resources to stay off the grid, Sharon deduced, her mind slipping into the analytical mode she often used in her psychology practice. If Matt is using her old network, he thinks he's invisible. He thinks he can strike at us at Faith at Mariah without us ever seeing it coming. Nick stood up abruptly, unable to contain the restless energy coursing through his veins. He paced the length of the cozy living room, his boots thudding rhythmically against the hardwood floor. He was a man who had faced down corporate titans, survived plane crashes, and battled his own father, the indomitable Victor Newman. Yet right now, Nick felt an agonizing, suffocating vulnerability. It wasn't for himself. It was never for himself. It was the thought of Matt Clark anywhere near his family. The memories of Matt's cruelty were scars on Nick's soul. He remembered the helpless rage he had felt all those years ago, the desperate need to protect Sharon from a monster who wore a charming smile. Now, as an older, supposedly wiser man, the terror was magnified. He had more to lose now. Faith was thriving. Noah was finding his way. Summer was building her life. I won't let him near any of you, Nick said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. He stopped by the window, staring out into the dark expanse of the Newman property. The moonlight caught the fierce, unyielding determination in his dark eyes. I don't care what it takes, Sharon. I don't care what lines I have to cross. I am going to eliminate this threat. Matt Clark ends now. Sharon stood and walked over to him, placing a gentle grounding hand on his back. She could feel the tremors of suppressed rage vibrating through his muscles. We are going to stop him, Nick, but we are going to do it smart. We aren't going to let him drag us down into the mud with him. We have Adam's intel. We have the upper hand. For the first time, Matt is the one in the dark. Nick turned to face her, his hands coming up to cup her face. He's a rabid dog, Sharon. You don't negotiate with a rabid dog. You put it down. Then we trap him, Sharon said firmly, her brown eyes locking with his. We use Reese's information. We go to the authorities. We build a cage he can't charm his way out of. An hour later, the cottage had transformed into a makeshift command center. Nick utilized the formidable reach of Newman Enterprises, bypassing standard dispatchers to get a direct, secure line to Captain Harris of the Las Vegas Police Department. Mr. Newman, the gruff voice of the captain echoed through the laptop speakers. To what do I owe the pleasure? I imagine this isn't a courtesy call about your family's real estate holdings on the Strip. Far from it. Captain Nick replied, his tone all business. I'm sending over an encrypted file right now. I need you to open it with the passcode I just texted to your private cell. There was a brief silence followed by the clacking of a keyboard. All right, I'm in. What am I looking at? Sharon leaned into the frame of the webcam. Captain Harris, I'm Sharon Rosales. What you're looking at is a detailed ledger belonging to Reza Thompson. We believe it points to the current whereabouts of a highly dangerous fugitive with a history of violent obsession and stalking. His name is Matt Clark. Clark, Harris muttered, the sound of rustling paper filtering through the audio. The name rings a bell. Interpol had a red notice on him a while back, but he vanished like smoke. You're telling me he's in my city? We have reason to believe he's utilizing one of Reza Thompson's off-the-books properties, Nick explained, outlining the evidence Adam had so painstakingly compiled. Address is in the file. We want to propose a joint operation. We have the psychological profile. We know his habits, and we know he's currently planning an attack on my family in Genoa City. If we work together, we can set a trap and take him off the board before he boards a flight out of Nevada. The line went dead as Captain Harris put them on a brief hold to coordinate with his intelligence unit. The silence in the cottage was deafening. Nick tapped his fingers against his thigh, his eyes locked on the blinking red light of the muted call. 20 agonizing minutes later, the audio clicked back to life. Newman, you there? Harris asked, his voice tighter, laced with a new urgency. I'm here, Nick said, leaning closer to the microphone. Your intel was dead on, the captain confirmed. I had a discreet surveillance unit do a drive-by of the address. It's an old, heavily fortified penthouse on the edge of the Arts District. Supposed to be vacant, tied up in a shell corporation. But my guys picked up thermal signatures. Better yet, we accessed a street-level traffic cam. We got a facial match, 85% probability of a man matching Matt Clark's description exiting a side door to retrieve a delivery. Sharon let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. It's him. He's really there. He's there and he's comfortable, Harris continued. But taking him down in a fortified penthouse is a tactical nightmare. If he realizes we're coming, he could have escape routes or worse, explosives. Reza Thompson's associates weren't known for going quietly. Then we don't breach the penthouse, Nick said, a cold strategic calm washing over him. We draw him out. We make him think he's executing his own plan. Sharon and I are flying out tonight. We'll be on the ground in 4 hours. We want to be part of the strategy meeting. I usually don't let civilians play cowboy, Newman Harris warned. I'm not playing, Captain Nick replied, his voice a lethal promise. And this is my family's lives on the line. I'll see you in 4 hours. The Newman corporate jet cut through the night sky like a silver bullet, touching down on the private tarmac of McCarran International Airport just as the first hints of dawn threatened to break over the Mojave Desert. The neon glow of the Las Vegas Strip pulsed in the distance, a glittering oasis of sin and secrets, but Nick and Sharon had no eyes for the spectacle. They were whisked away in a waiting town car, arriving at the precinct in the heart of the city. The air inside the station was stale, smelling of burnt coffee, ozone, and nervous sweat. They were ushered into a windowless briefing room where Captain Harris and a team of hardened detectives were already gathered around a sprawling blueprint of the arts district. All right, listen up. Harris barked as Nick and Sharon took their places at the table. This is our target, Matt Clark. He's smart, he's patient, and he's incredibly dangerous. He's currently holed up in this building. He tapped a red marker against a specific block on the map. Sharon stepped forward, projecting her professional authority. Matt operates on a need for control. If he feels cornered, he will react violently. The trap needs to be seamless. He has to believe he is making the choice to walk out of that building. We've monitored his communications based on the burner numbers in Reese's files. A tech detective chimed in. He's expecting a courier this afternoon, someone delivering forged passports and untraceable cash. It's his ticket to Genoa City. That's our in. Nick said, his eyes scanning the blueprints. We intercept the courier. We take his place. When Matt comes down to the designated drop-off point to make the exchange, we box him in. The detectives murmured in agreement, and for the next 2 hours, they meticulously mapped out the sting operation. Every alleyway, every line of sight, every potential exit was accounted for. Nick and Sharon worked in tandem with the local police, their intimate knowledge of Matt's psychology proving invaluable in anticipating his moves. They established a perimeter, assigned undercover roles, and set the parameters for engagement. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, the unforgiving Nevada sun was beating down on the asphalt of the Arts District, creating shimmering waves of heat distortion. From the outside, the street looked like any other bustling thoroughfare. Tourists wandered by delivery trucks, idled at the curb, and a homeless man slept on a bus bench. But beneath the mundane surface, a highly orchestrated trap had been sprung. Nick and Sharon sat in the cramped, air-conditioned confines of an unmarked surveillance van parked half a block away from the drop-off point, an abandoned loading dock behind Matt's building. The walls of the van were lined with monitors, feeding live footage from hidden cameras scattered across the street. Radio check, Captain Harris's voice crackled over the earpiece Nick wore. Alpha team in position. Bravo team holding the perimeter. Copy that, an undercover officer disguised as a sanitation worker replied. Nick felt a bead of sweat roll down his spine despite the chill of the van's AC. He reached out his large hand, enveloping Sharon's smaller one. Her fingers were ice cold, but her grip was ironclad. He's going to show, Sharon whispered, her eyes glued to the center monitor showing the heavy steel door of the loading dock. He's too arrogant to think anyone has caught on to him. Let him be arrogant, Nick muttered, his jaw set. Arrogance breeds mistakes.